Hello everyone, Dr. Monique Wachu here. I have been challenged by Lauren Shu of Lauren Shu Media to respond to one question about feminism for each day of Women's Month 2026. Now, the last time I did something like this, a Women's Month campaign, was in 2020, where I kind of chronicled the history of women's movement or the feminist movement in Cameroon. And fast forward to last year, it actually helped me when I was working on a paper and working on a project with some other colleagues. So I believe nothing is wasted. So although it looks like a social media campaign, I actually think it's actually an addition. It's building on something. It's building on something that a friend of mine had already done. We used to have a Facebook page called Ask a Cameroonian Feminist, Ask a Cameroonian Feminist. Helen had set that up. So this is 2026, and you have an opportunity to ask a Cameroonian feminist the questions they have. Lorraine has already compiled some questions for me, but if you have specific questions about feminism or feminist thought, feel free to respond to this video or the other videos that you will see where I'm answering specific questions. Happy Women's Month in advance. First question right off the bat for Women's Month challenge. The first question is, when someone says they're feminist, what do they mean? What is feminism really? Good question. And I'm going to try to make it as simple as possible. Feminism is the belief and the movement for equal rights between the genders. It believes that men and women are inherently equal as human beings. Men and women should have equal responsibilities, rights, opportunities, fair treatment between them. There should not be discrimination based on gender. Okay. But it also acknowledges that we are not currently equal. We're operating within a system of injustice under patriarchy. So we have to move for that equality to come about. So it's a movement for justice, for gender equity. Because if we're not 50-50 right now, we cannot be acting as if we're 50-50. We have to get there. How do we get there? We make effort. We take equitable actions to be able to address the injustice that has been happening for ages. So if you believe that men and women should be treated fairly, men and women are equal, not the same, equal. If you believe that they should be treated equal, they should have equal opportunities, equal rights, equal responsibilities, then you are acting towards that, making an effort towards it in your own space. It doesn't have to be the same effort. But if you do all of that, then you're feminist. It's really that simple.
Hello again. This is Monique Wachu, and this is day 2 of a challenge where I am answering one feminism-related question all through Women's Month. The second question I got is, what is patriarchy? Now, you always hear us speak of patriarchy as a system which feminism is against. And it's a bit complex because people use patriarchy differently. It's one of those words like that can have multiple meanings. But all the meanings are related. So some people might use patriarchy to mean social system where father is the head of the family, or it could be used to mean how one's descendants are traced, but that is actually patrilineal, not patriarchy. There's confusion between it. Like the Com people are matrilineal. That means inheritance is done through the mother rather than through the father. But although the Com people are matrilineal, they still exist within the patriarchy because the idea behind it, the social system, is to benefit men. It's because they don't trust the fact that that man's child might be his child. So although it is matrilineal, the descendants, it is still existing within a patriarchy. So how do I explain this? I could say patriarchy, the simple definition I could give you here is the systemic belief that men should dominate. men should be superior to women. And this is the belief that overrides, or this is the belief that is at the base, foundational for a system. So because we believe this, our religion says only men should have certain positions in church. Because we believe this is the foundation. Our economic system say only men should have certain amount of money or certain financial positions. Women can be bank tellers, but not bank managers. Because we believe this, our social norms and our mores will be like, okay, you can't speak up in the presence of a man. If you have to correct me at any point, please do it behind. But you as a woman should be able to take any insult in front. Because we believe this, it is normalized that, oh, women, your phone should be open, but a man, he has a right to hide his phone and have passwords and things like that. So patriarchy is an overall system. I'll say patriarchy is a belief that supersedes the system, that actually like passes throughout everything that we are doing. And it's not a matter of just men. Men are not equal to patriarchy. Patriarchy being this belief and this foundational system, we are all operating in it. So women can be patriarchal because they believe a man should be dominant. They can operate within patriarchy. They have been socialized within patriarchy. So we are all tools of it. When you believe that a man should protect me because I'm a woman, I'm just a girl. I am operating within the patriarchy. When you believe that even though we have equal, perhaps having the same salary, we're having the same responsibilities, it's up to you to do more. I'm operating within patriarchy. Now, what we are saying here is that system of belief, that foundation actually disadvantages both men and women. So it's more limiting for women, obviously, because you have less opportunities, you have less rights, you have less resources within that system. But it's just as limiting, it's equally limiting for men, because it puts unnecessary pressure on them, and it so divides the gender roles in a way that they are not allowed to actually express vulnerability. Anything that is effeminate, anything that is womanly is seen as weak, less than, is seen as subsidiary, is seen as, not alpha. And so in this system, both genders actually at a disadvantage. Hello there, this is Monique Quattro again, and this is day 3 of a 31-day challenge I've been given to answer a feminism-related question every day of March 2026 as we commemorate Women's Month. Today's question that was given to me, and again, I want to know these questions are given to me. I might edit them, but they're given to me. And I encourage you to give yours. Today's question is, why do feminists hate men? And why don't we advocate for them too? First of all, we don't hate men. Feminists do not hate men. That's simple. We don't. Feminism hates patriarchy. It hates the idea of male dominance over women. That is it. So whether you're a patriarchy princess or you're a man that believes in that dominance, you're part of the patriarchy. That's what we hate. We don't hate men as individuals. It's the same as black people hate racism, and they hate the idea of whiteness being superior to blackness or people of color in general. And that doesn't mean we don't have white friends. That doesn't mean we hate all white people. Black people marry white people all the time. So obviously we do not hate all white people. But anyway, that's a very bad example. That's a very bad example. But again, because you can marry somebody you hate. Anyway, like I was saying, we don't hate men. And the idea that we don't defend them is also wrong. I would argue that we defend men more than anybody else. The traditional and conservative depiction of men is as people that cannot control themselves. Oh, she was wearing a skirt and she tempted him. That's why he raped her. Oh, men are just overgrown boys. They are children. Your husband is your first child. Oh, that men cannot do this. Men can't take care of themselves, so you have to go to his house and go and help him take care of himself. So on. That's the depiction of men in traditional context. They're saying this. You're telling me an adult that's equal to me is less responsible, is more animalistic, can't be controlled, and just acts like a beast. And that's how you're depicting men. That's how traditionally they're depicting men. And feminists are the only ones that are saying that that's not who men are. That men are just as logical as we are. Men can be as fatherly as we are motherly. Men can be as vulnerable as we are. And that's valid. We're the only ones that are defending the fact that men and women can be treated fairly. First of all, if we did not care about men, we would not have been advocating for equality in the first place. Because can you imagine if men had to do everything right now as capitalism is getting worse? Like, we're barely coping with 2-income households. So thank you, feminist. And also, the fact that you just get to be. You can ask now, you're seeing men saying, oh no, our feelings are not being taken into consideration. You're asking about feelings. I thank a feminist, because the feminist that wrote about that, the fact that your feelings are being disregarded by patriarchy. So yes, feminists do care about men, and they have always advocated for men as well. And prior to all this, there's a blog I wrote about men's issues as well, a long time ago. I don't know, it's 2016. I'll tag it here. So yes, we have always advocated. But I think people need to note that the person that suffers more gets more attention. So within the patriarchy, women are more disadvantaged. So obviously, you're speaking about women's issues more. If you cared so much about men's issues, why don't you bring it up first before a feminist does? You don't have to wait. You can also bring it up. What is the number one men's issue? If they ask an average person, will they know? I bet you if you ask a feminist, they will know. And that's the problem. We actually care about the system changing. It's not a war, individual war. This whole war thing is made up. There's no gender war. When people are fighting online, the arguments that are going online, just feeding the pockets of millionaires. There is no real gender war going on. Actually, if there's any war going on, it's a war on women's bodies. But, so yeah, there's no gender war.
Hello there, this is Dr. Monique Kwachu, and this is day 4 of 31 days where I'll be answering a feminism-related question every day as part of a challenge for International Women's Month, March 2026. Today's question, which I received, is why do some women reject feminism? And it's a valid question because the idea is, well, if feminism is so good and it's pro-women, why do some women reject it? Well, I have to stand to explain again that we are all operating within a system of patriarchy. We're all complicit. And if feminism is against that system, that dominant belief that one gender is better than the other, one gender should be dominant over the other, and if you're coming to basically counteract what somebody has been raised with, what their values are, what their whole life has been. You're coming to tell them that the white they thought was black is actually white. So obviously their first reaction is going to be to reject that. And feminists are used to this. There were women against other women's right to vote when the feminists were fighting for suffrage. There were women against another woman's right to compete with men in athletics, in races, in swimming. because they have been brought up to know that their husband should be dominant. So how dare this other woman come and question their husband when they themselves are subordinate to their husband? Or how dare another woman question their son when their son should be the only one to have that spot? So that's the problem with patriarchy. If I have been raised in the system, I've normalized this thing. Somebody else comes to tell me that that thing is wrong. Even if it's for my ultimate good, I cannot see it now. It requires unlearning because it's a belief that you have been socialized with. It has been normalized. It has been okayed. It has been made law. It has been made biblical, even if it's not. So, yes, that's why they reject it. They reject it because even if they're not benefiting from it, it's dogma. They have been socialized into it. Another reason why I see women, another reason or explanation for women's rejection of feminism is internalized sexism. Sexism is basically inequality, right, between the sexes. Now, if I've internalized the fact that my role is simply to support my husband, and I have created my personality around that is who I am. Without this man, I am nothing. He is the head and I am the tail. If I have done that, and then there is another person that comes here and tells me, oh, okay, you can do that. I'm going to do better than you. And I'm going to do this, this, and this, and this. And she is competing, not with me, but she's competing, pitting herself as an equal to my husband, who is my head. It's like you've bypassed me to pitch yourself against him. So that's the hatred that you actually see. It's internalized sexism. If I have been made so subordinate and I've accepted that, somebody else no longer seeing me as her counterpart, even though she's a woman like me, but seeing the person that I have accepted to be subordinate to as her counterpart. Now, instead of fighting him, because I can't fight him, I've accepted him as the head, I fight her. So that's just basically it. I've tried to make it as simple as possible, but it's not a woman versus woman thing. It's actually it's against patriarchy. It's the system. So you have to fight that dogma. You have to fight that belief that people have internalized, and help them unlearn it, because they are also operating to their disadvantage. That's basically it. So yeah, it's a very sinister thing.
Hello there. Today's day 5 of 31 days of me responding to feminism-related questions. And I am still taking questions, so send them ahead. Today's question is feminism a Western concept? Now, this is an old one and forever coming up. I actually did a presentation related to this earlier this week, and hopefully I'll get the link, I'll get the video, and I'll be able to share it with this video so people can learn more if they want to. So, is feminism a Western concept? No, it's not. Feminism is an English word derived from a French word coined by a French man. The word, the concept, no, it's not. Because different things have different words across different languages. So if, as I explained in day 1, feminism is against inequality between the sexes, it's against sexism, discrimination on the basis of gender. If feminism is against the ideology, patriarchy, which is the dominance of men, the superiority of men over women, then it is not a Western concept. Literally everybody has been feminist. Every continent has had feminism. Because every continent has had patriarchy, and there have always been women that resisted patriarchy. There have always been men that resisted patriarchy. So this is not a Western thing that they gave to us. It's very much African. The word we are using today for it
might be an English word. But then again, we are using English. I'm using English to speak to you right now, or we're using French to speak to you. So the problem is not actually the word. The problem is that you think that the resistance is foreign. But we have always resisted. We just haven't celebrated our people that resisted. We haven't celebrated Queen Zinga enough. We haven't celebrated Santewa enough. We haven't celebrated the women that actually resisted enough because of patriarchy. So no, it's not a Western concept. It's a very much African concept. It's a very much African thing. Okay. Perhaps I'll go into detail about the different schools of thought of feminism and how they differ if somebody asks a question regarding that in the days to come. But the short answer is no. Feminism is African because Africans value equality just like anybody else. Africans also see injustice as wrong just like anybody else. So obviously Africans have always resisted inequality just like anybody else. And that resisting of inequality is called feminism. Can men be feminists too? Greetings from Cameroon, wherever you're watching this from. I am Dr. Monique Kwachu, and today is day 6 of 31 days where I will be answering feminism-related questions as part of a challenge for March 2026, Women's Month. Today's question is, can men be feminists too? Yes. That's the answer. Yes, men can be feminists too. And I'm going to elaborate a bit, but I always go over time. So there's this exercise I do when I'm teaching undergrads or when I'm teaching people that are new to the concept, to be able to help them calm down because there's a lot of anti-feminist propaganda. So to be able to situate them, like, are you actually okay with inequality or not? Are you teachable? To be able to decipher that, I asked 3 questions, and I should probably patent this. Anyway, it should be coming out in a publication soon by God's grace. The first question is, are you conscious of inequalities between the genders in your society? That's question number 1. Are you conscious of them? So you know that men and women are not treated equally, don't have equal rights or responsibilities. And there's that gap between the genders. Are you conscious of that? Okay, that's question 1. Question 2, being conscious of that, if you say yes to that, then we go to question 2. Being conscious of that, do you think that it's correct? Or do you think that it's something that is unfair, it's wrong, needs to be addressed? Because you can be conscious, you can be like, oh yeah, there's this inequality in my society, but that's the way God made it. Or that's the way it's supposed to be. So that's something else. But if you are like, yeah, I see that it's there, but I don't think it's right. I don't think it's fair. Okay, so you said yes, that you're conscious, and secondly, you think it's unfair and it's something that needs to be changed. Question 3, are you willing to be one of the people that act towards changing it so that the future is more fair? If you say yes to all 3 questions, then you're a feminist. It's really that simple. Because you acknowledge that there is an inequality between the genders. 2, that inequality should not be there. That inequality in itself is injustice. And 3, you are committing to doing your best at your level to changing it. So if you answer all 3, you're a feminist. Now, the extent to which you're a feminist or the school of thought of feminism you belong to, that's different. That's where the theory comes in. That's when I can start teaching. But you have to answer these 3 things very honestly. And if you say no to not being conscious, then are you dead? If you say no to thinking that you're conscious, you say no to the question number 2, you're like, yeah, I know that there's inequality, but it's supposed to be that way. Then you're operating within patriarchy now. It means that you're saying that you're fine with injustice. And if you say yes to the first 2, but on the third part, I'm not willing to commit, then that just means you're non-committal. What is going to push you to the point that you act on what you already think, what you already know? So yeah, everybody can be feminist if they care about injustice.
Is feminism anti-religious? Hello there, this is Dr. Monique Kwachu, and this is me answering the 7th question of my 31-day challenge, answering one feminism-related question every day of March 2026 as a commemoration of Women's Month. The 7th question I got was, is feminism anti-religious? And that's a very good question. That's a very common question. And I like the way you worded it. You said anti-religious. And that's where the thing is. Because I would easily tell you as a Christian, speaking from a Christian perspective, that feminism is not anti-Christian. Now, anti-religious, considering the fact that Jesus himself was anti-religious, that's where things become fishy. Because religion is basically an institution that is built on the faith. And when man-made institutions built on the faith typically are infused with patriarchy. So religious institutions can be patriarchal, can be everything that feminism is against. That's true. But as a Christian, I am answering you, telling you that feminism is not anti-Christian. I am Christian and feminist at the same time. Jesus is as feminist as he gets. And if you read your Bible, you will know that. And patriarchy is a consequence of the fall. If you see in Genesis chapter 3, you'll see it said, and the man your desire shall be for the man, and he shall lord it over you. That lording it over you, the man lording himself, and men generally lording themselves, their superiority over the woman, is, in my opinion, this is my exegesis of that scripture, okay? And that's essentially, for me, the source of patriarchy. So patriarchy is the consequence of the fall. Now, did God intend for us to be unequal? In his word, if you read the Bible, that's not so. Did Christ treat us unequally? That is not so. So I do not see how you think feminism and Christianity are unrelated or are, against each other. They are not. And I feel like this whole confusion comes about because people don't understand what feminism is or don't properly understand Christian teaching. If I could say, I would recommend additional reading on this if you want to know more. This is one of my favorite books on this topic. It's called Jesus Feminist by Sari Bessie. And there are some other links which I will share. I remember I even did a YouTube video on the controversy around, well, if you're a feminist, why do you think, somebody said, why do you think you should be a virgin? Why do you think you should maintain your virginity up to marriage? And I was like, well, feminism is about bodily autonomy and choice. So whether you choose to or you choose not to, it's up to you. So yeah, it's really not anti-feminist to be Christian. I can't speak for all religions. I'm speaking just for mine. Have a nice day.
Feminism is a reason why women are celebrated more than men. For example, Women's Day. Hello there, and welcome back. Today is day 8, and I am responding to feminism-related questions every day of March 2026 in commemoration of Women's Month. Today's Women's Day. And so, although this question was sent before, I'm responding to it today. The question goes, feminism it's not a question, it's a comment. Feminism is a reason why women are celebrated more than men. For example, Women's Day. I just want to clarify something. I know this was sent by a Cameroonian, and my target population, my audience, is majority Cameroonian. What should people know as Women's Day happens only in Cameroon? This celebration happens nowhere else. So it's not a problem of feminism, it's more a problem of Cameroon. What you're seeing, the fete around it, is a corruption of International Women's Day. The commemoration of International Women's Day should be solemn, it should be about activism, it should be addressing a problem of gender inequality.
about addressing patriarchy and the problems that it causes in our society, the pervasive problems it causes in our society across all dimensions. But it has been reduced, it has been cheapened into something that's a celebration. And in doing so, it has lost the power. The day has lost its power. And that's what people hate. You're seeing it as a celebration of a particular gender, but it's not even supposed to be that. So this is a corruption. Now, as to whether feminism has made them celebrate women more than men, I would say no, because that right there is deceptive. It is kind of like, I'm going to use the example, I always use an example of other isms, other inequalities. And another ism that I think we all understand is racism. In the United States, where racism is pervasive, there is African American have a month, Black History Month. So that is supposed to be a month to recognize their role in the country and their historical abuse against these people, and to acknowledge them because they have been erased from history for so long. So now, white people see it as offensive because they're a class that they're the group that has been privileged all along. So they say, like, why don't we have our month? There's no White History Month. Why do they have a Black History Month? That's how you sound when you're saying, oh, you guys are celebrating Women's Day and we don't celebrate men. But that's a group that has had the power for so long. Literally every day. We celebrate men every day. If I go to a shop and I say I'm looking for Papa dish, they have a bowl there. Have you ever gone to a shop and asked they are looking for Mama dish? There's a privilege that comes with being a man in our society. And then there is this day that has been made to be like, let us celebrate our women today. Let us fet our women today. And actually, that's not supposed to be so, because what you're supposed to be doing is addressing that inequality so that there doesn't even need to be a day. So that every day is Men and Women's Day. So yeah, that problem is Cameroonian, very Cameroonian. That's not us, that's not feminism. Please, face your front, face your country. Feminism is not against the teachings of Christ. Welcome back. This is day 9 of me answering feminism-related questions all through the month of March 2026. And I think this is like a comment to someone else responding to my prior question, a question I answered on day 7, I think. The person says, you say feminism is not anti-Christian, but feminists encourage, promote divorce, reject modesty, and submission. Feminism is not anti-Christian. Again, let me repeat. Feminism is not against the teachings of Christ. Because I've given the definition in day 1, but just let me repeat it. Because feminism simply says men and women, children of God, should be treated equally and are equal in terms of responsibilities and rights in opportunities. For that reason, it cannot be against the teaching of Christ. Now, you say we are rejecting submission. The Bible says submit yourselves to one another. Now, you have picked out a verse on submission. And I know you're talking about Ephesians chapter 5 verse. You have picked out one verse on submission. That women submit to your wives, while husbands love your wives. They are not mutually exclusive, first of all. And secondly, that same book says submit to one another. Submission is not a problem, especially when you're submitting to somebody who is like Christ. That should not be a problem. The problem is you don't want submission, you want subservience. You think submission means somebody should lie flat and be walked over. That's not submission. And that's not the teaching of Christ. First of all, that's actually the teaching of Paul. Let's not even get to the fact that that's the teaching of Paul. But okay, let's just say Paul's teaching is a Christian teaching here. That's still not it. That's still not what you're asking for. Next, about us promoting divorce and promoting immodesty. I'm going to say this as gently as possible. Feminism, just like the teachings of the Bible, says you have free will. And I should not,
I, human being, am not going to judge somebody, especially if they're not a Christian, based on the Bible. If you're a Christian, I can call you to order, but excuse me, we are not here promoting immodesty, promoting anything actually. We're saying that treat men and women equally. So if he's wearing something immodest, treat them the same way you're going to treat them equally. But if you're saying that women should be covered head to toe so they should not be raped, even though men walk around all the time and are not raped based on how they are dressed, then you're not treating them equally. So that's what we're asking for. It's not a matter of nobody's promoting a particular thing. Nobody's promoting divorce. We are saying that there should be a choice. It should not be one person that should be able to marry two wives. If you're going to agree to polygamy, agree to polyandry. If you're going to agree that a man can kick a woman out if she commits adultery, a woman should be able to do the same thing for a man. That's what we're asking for. It's really that simple. And on that point, you should thank a feminist today because up until 2016, adultery was unfairly defined in Cameroon law. So prior to that, adultery favored the man in such a way that men were able to commit adultery to a certain extent without being penalized. But thanks to feminists, you now can actually challenge if your husband commits adultery, just like a husband could have challenged a wife.
Is feminism elitist? Yes, it is. Welcome back. This is day 10 of 31 days of me answering feminism-related questions every day of March 2026 for Women's Month. And today's question is a very good one. And I'm impressed by whoever asked the question. Today's question is feminism elitist? Yes, it is. I'm sorry, but it is. As a feminist, I agree, I accept. The movement is very feminist and it should not be. The concept is not. Because like I said, it's an ideology, it's a belief, an ideology, a movement, right? It means it's something that people believe and a philosophy that people hold, but it's also something that people act on, the movement. And that movement is very elitist because the people that have the ideology, the people that have crafted the ideology often speak big grammar. I'm very sorry, but we never talk big grammar. And we act as though our grandmothers did not do it before us. They did not call themselves feminist, but they were just as feminist, if not more so than we are today. So, the current day contemporary feminist movement is very elitist. It's very far removed from the grassroots. It does not appreciate the average woman's effort to counter patriarchy because that average woman's effort to counter patriarchy does not look like it. So I acknowledge that this movement that I'm a part of is very elitist and it's a problem that we have to address. And I'm hoping that it's something that more of us can counter. So yes, thank you for that question. That's a very good question. And I hope I responded. The fact that it's elitist doesn't mean that it's right. Doesn't mean that the movement itself should be something that we do away with. Every movement has a problem. It's just kind of like, I'll liken it again. Like I said, feminism is a belief and an ideology, right? And a movement. Same thing with Christianity. It's a belief and a movement. You believe in Jesus Christ and you're a disciple. That's the movement. So there are some Christian denominations that have corrupted the faith. They have the way their teachings, their principles, the dogma around it go against the principles of it. Does that mean we throw Christianity away altogether? No. So why is it expected that because they are fanatics, because there's a problem, there's a corruption, there's elitism, there's this blight within the movement, doesn't disregard the movement altogether? The fact that there is a secessionist group and extremist within a movement does not mean within the Anglophone, the movement against Anglophone marginalization does not mean that movement for Anglophone marginalization is wrong. So a problem of a movement does not disregard the movement. But yes, we are elitist. That movement is elitist and it needs to be addressed if it has to actually
combat patriarchy for the long haul? Thank you for asking that question.
Today is day 11 of 31 days where I'm answering feminism-related questions all through Women's Month 2026. And today I'm responding to one of the questions I received under another video. And the commenter asks, what's my take on equality versus equity, that I should explain that. That's a very good question, and it's something that we teach at introductory level in gender studies, feminist studies. Anyway, to give you the gist of it, equality is simply the state of being equal. It's a state of fairness. So everybody has the same amount of rights. Everybody has the same access to an opportunity. Everybody has the same punishment. It's a state of fairness. Equity refers to actions towards that state of fairness. Me giving everybody what they need so that they are equal. So if you need 3 bags of rice to be equal to somebody that's had bags of rice all their lives, then it's equity when I give you 3 bags of rice, even though I'm giving them 1, because I'm trying to make you meet up to their level. And I think it's a very important distinction to understand, because people don't get it when they see job calls and the job call says, oh, we strongly encourage women to apply. We give preference to women for this and this. And they're like, no, people are being unfair. You were saying that it's feminism, but you're being unfair to men. Historically, men have benefited from this thing. Women are underrepresented in this area. So we are taking equitable action so that they can meet up with men in that field. It's not unfair, actually, because the scales are not balanced. Until the scales balance, before you can say it's unfair. So it's done with data to be able to justify the fact that, okay, things are unequal now. How do we reach the state of equality? We have to take actions of equity. And there's a third dream or utopia that we imagine, which is the state of justice, where the thing that was making us unequal in the first place is removed completely. So I'm going to put an image here that describes all of this, and I hope that it clears that up. We are not at a state of equality, so we cannot be 50-50. That's why it's going to be imbalanced in certain things to make up for years of inequality.
This is Dr. Monique Quattro, and this is day 12 of me answering feminism-related questions all through March 2026 as I commemorate International Women's Month. This is a challenge from Lorraine Shu Media. Please go follow them. Now, onto the question. I received the question just before Women's Day. Someone said, what is the use of feminism? How are feminists useful for women today, or something like that? I have to go back to the question before taking a video, but anyway, I think that's what the person asked. And I think I understand the question to mean that the person believes feminism is no longer useful today. So they want to know how feminists are useful to women today. I would say this simply: feminists are useful to both men and women. Feminism is the belief in gender equality and the movement that takes action towards it. So unless gender equality has been achieved, unless gender justice has been achieved, feminism is so useful. Feminists today are the ones that are advocating for things like the harmonization of civil law and customary law, because there are clashes with that. Feminists today are those that are advocating for women's ability to lead, because we won't be having these wars if women were leading. So yes, we still need feminism today. And there's so many. We're in Cameroon, right? Just this year alone, there have been records of, like, I think it's close to 20, and that's what we know. Those are the ones we know. Close to 20 femicides, which shows that there is still a problem of how women are perceived in our society as belonging to you, to the point that you can kill them. to the point that you can abuse them without repercussions. So, yeah, we still need feminism today. We are not in a post feminism age, okay? And if you want to have men who in future are not believers of the idea that they can subjugate others, that the only way to prove their manliness is to be able to use violence, then yes, we still need feminism too for men.
Can you be feminist and feminine? Hello there, this is Dr. Monique Quattro, and I am answering one feminism-related question each day of March 2026 to commemorate Women's Month. Today's question is, can you be feminist and feminine? Now, first of all, I think I need to break down this question or my understanding of this question better. Feminist, distinguish between sex and gender. Your sex is your biological sex, which you were born with, and your gender is a social construct, how your sex is perceived, what it should do, how it should act, the norms around that. So, what is considered feminine is what the female sex, how the female sex should act, how it should dress, how it should speak, how it should, like, the norms, the gestures, everything, right? That's attributed to being female. And I think you're asking me if we can be both feminist and depict these things of being female. And I just have to say, please look at me. I'm the most, I do the most when it concerns Nyanga. So please, yes, you can be feminist and feminine by contemporary standards. But I also want to denote that as feminists, we advocate for choice. So not everybody has to be feminine in contemporary standards. And what is feminine even changes. I want us to understand the fact that a lot of what we consider femininity here in this day and time is actually coloniality. It's linked to the colonial master's idea of what a woman is, not necessarily ours. So, your femininity is not in question because you're a feminist. We wear lipstick. We love earrings. We love jewelry. We do all the girly stuff. And you can still do all of that and request for equality and request for justice. So it's not incompatible. Okay, I hope I answered your question. Oh, women don't get to split firewood. Let the boys do it. Or, as a woman, to be protected, let the man stand on this side of the road. Even if he's your younger brother, he should stand on this side of the road and protect you. Hello there. Today's question is someone querying me, asking why I don't address the benefits that women have in our society. But I'm only talking about but feminism only talks about their oppression. That's a good question. And what I want, in response, I would say you get a watered down version of feminism in pop culture, in society. That there's certain concepts that you probably get only in feminist studies, like if you're reading books, if you're reading widely, or if you understand that there are advantages, yes, that are also being queried. And those advantages fall on the concept of what is benevolent sexism. Benevolent sexism are inequalities based on gender, but there are nice inequalities, such as, oh, women don't get to split firewood, let the boys do it. Or, as a woman, to be protected, let the man stand on this side of the road. Even if he's your younger brother, he should stand on this side of the road and protect you. He's being a gentleman. So those things, those are unfair. That's unfair treatment, right? Based on gender. So it is sexism, but it is benevolent sexism, niceties. And so they are not complained about often in public, but they are complained about. It's because obviously the term exists. We have studied it. It's like, okay, it's not normal that my younger brother should be the one standing on this side of the road for a taxi to hit because he wants to protect me because I am a frail and dainty woman. So yeah, these things exist. People have critiqued it. You might not be seeing people critiquing it. And that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. That doesn't mean the critique of it doesn't exist. Now, are feminists talking about it? Are feminists advocating for equal rights in that over benevolent sexism? Yes, we are. Because guess what? The benevolent sexism is not enough to be equal to or to compensate for the oppression. The oppression is still more than that benevolent sexism. So if you're going to oppress me in all these other aspects, but you're going to say, oh, sit inside, let me sit by the door, I will protect you. Who are you protecting me from? Address the problem. So yes, there is benevolent sexism. Yes, it is unfair to men. Yes, feminists address it. And yes, we are saying that is unfair, and we would give that up in a heartbeat as compared to the oppression. If you have to go away with the oppression, you will give it up in a heartbeat. So thank you for asking. That's a very good question. What is toxic masculinity? And isn't there a female version? Is it only about men? Hello there and welcome to another day. I think this is day 15 of me answering feminism-related questions all through March 2026 in commemoration of Women's Month. Today's question is a very good one. The person asked, what is toxic masculinity? And isn't there a female version? Is it only about men? Good question. Now, before I get into the toxic part, I have to explain masculinity, femininity. These are aspects of our gender. Like, you are female, you are male, right? And then gender is that social construct, what is expected of me for being female, what is expected of you for being male. And therein lies the problem, because some of those things, that expectations, some of those traits that are linked to our sex are toxic, are restrictive. Some gender characterizations are very harmful and narrow, inflexible. That right there is where they become toxic. By toxic masculinity, for example, we mean that there are certain harmful and restrictive traits ascribed to men, such as boys shouldn't cry. If a man talks too much, he's like a woman. There's a lot of that going around right now, saying that, oh, men are in their princess era because they're saying they deserve for their feelings to be considered as well. So men are in their princess era. That is not feminist. Now, if you are toxic masculinity suggests that there's only one way to be a man. And that way, it requires you to be domineering. It requires you to be always in control. It requires you to suppress your emotions. It requires you to be violent. It requires you to be basically domineering over subjugating others. That you're always in competition. They require power, and when they do not have it, they are either seen as not manly, or they lash out to be able to get that power. So we're saying that if you have such an inflexible definition of masculinity, it is contributing to keep upholding this patriarchal system. So it's not only harmful to women, not only harmful to the other gender, it's harmful to the men as well, because that leads to male isolation. That's why we're having so-called male loneliness epidemic. And that's also why we have very high rate of male suicide, because they are supposed to bottle up so much within themselves and can't express it. Whereas women are encouraged to completely express themselves, and that's seen as femininity. And yes, there is toxic femininity, but the truth is, the reason you don't hear the term toxic femininity is because what is toxic for femininity is already so normalized that nobody's even calling it toxic. Toxic femininity will be that restrictive, harmful, narrow as a description of what being feminine is. Such as, God forbid you cut your hair, that means you're not feminine. And you'll see people having a breakdown, honestly, over hair, because hair is ascribed to femininity. So to lose that is to lose their womanliness. God forbid you have to have an operation that requires you removing your womb for your health reasons. for your health. I have seen women refuse to have that operation. Why? Because having that womb makes me a woman. If it's killing me, it should be in there. So there are very narrow definitions of womanliness and manliness. And if your manliness requires you to subjugate another person, it's toxic. If your womanliness requires that you be subjugated and you be like lie down and flat, then yes, that idea of femininity is toxic. That's what we mean. Why are feminists angry women? There, this is Dr. Monique Quachu, and I am answering one feminism-related question all through the month of March 2026 in commemoration of Women's Month. Today is day 16, and I'm answering one of the questions I got early on, and it's a funny question. They asked me, are feminists angry women? Or why are feminists angry women? First of all, this is a trick question because there is no yes or no to it. And anyway, let me just try and answer my best. Let me put it this way. As part of an oppressed group, whether it's the Anglophone minority or an ethnic minority or a religious minority or the global black colored majority that is still subjugated globally, worldwide, a part of any oppressed group, your oppression should anger you. It's normal that when you're oppressed, you're angry. That when you're not given fair rights, you're angry. That's normal. That's a human reaction to injustice. We should all be angry at sexism. We should all be angry at patriarchy because it hurts us all. Like I've said, it hurts both men. It hurts both men and women. Now, as to whether feminists are angry, I personally would say we are not angry enough. If we were to retaliate, this world will be mad. We are not. We are not angry enough. The majority of us are actually very temperate. The majority of us are actually, I would say, lukewarm in the fight. But there are a minority that a lot of people see and then say, oh, they project that as these are feminists, man-hating, bitter women. And first of all, the fact that you have to project a handful of people should tell you that that's not the norm. Secondly, even if that person is angry and expressing the anger in a way that you don't like, because the problem with the anger, the problem is how they're expressing it. Because all of us should be angry at sexism and patriarchy, right? The problem is how they're expressing it. So if they're expressing the anger in ways they do not like, or more violent than you will like, or typically in a way that males will express that anger, and it discomforts you. My question, I will turn the question back on you, is why are you more upset at how this person is expressing their anger than what is causing the anger in the first place? Focus on that. If you focus on that, their anger, you will solve that problem. So yeah, I don't think we're angry enough, all of us. But I also know that people expect a particular way for our anger to be expressed. You expect that the person that is subordinated, subjugated, oppressed should resist in a particular way, in calm voice, demure, Unfortunately, some people have to be mad. So if people can appreciate the temperate, some people have to actually be mad, rabid monsters, so you can appreciate the temperate. Because when the temperate people come and tell you that this thing is wrong, you take them for granted. So yeah, they are angry feminists, but the majority are not as angry as they should be. And we should all be angry. Can you reject feminism and still support women? This is Dr. Monique Quachu, and I am once again answering question related to feminism for day 17 as part of a challenge I was given by Lorraine True Media. Now, today's question is, can you reject feminism and still support women? That's a good question. So I think people
are scared of the word feminism, despite the fact that I defined it day one. And the term still has a bad reputation. So people want to not call themselves feminist, but they want to support women. That's what you're saying, right? I get this with a lot of people saying that, oh, I am for gender equality, but I'm not feminist. And that's another, like, I would say a bit of a confusion. But anyway, to answer your question directly, I don't think you'll be doing what you think you're doing if you say that. Let me explain. If you say you support women, but you're not feminist, then what are you supporting women for? Against what? Supporting them to do what? Are you supporting them to continue being oppressed? You want to support them in their subjugation. What you want is that you don't want to fix the problem. You want to help them endure the problem. That's what it sounds like when you say, I want to support women, but I'm not feminist. Because feminism says there is a problem, we need to fix it. The problem is patriarchy. Let's address it. And the problem is not just about women. It affects men and women across the board. You're saying you want to support just women. So you don't want to address the fact that patriarchy affects men. You just want to support women and to support them in their role. So yeah, that's a bit problematic. I don't think it's giving what you think it's going to give. Yeah, and also you can't say I support gender equality, but I'm not feminist. Well, feminism is against gender inequality. So if you're supporting gender equality, if you're acting on it, you recognize that there's an inequality issue, you're acting on it, then that's feminism. You're just scared of the word. And to stop being scared of the word, read more about it from actual sources, from verified sources, not from online, like clickbait sources, please. Thank you.
This is Dr. Monique Quattro, and this is day 18 of me answering feminism-related questions all through the month of March 2026 in commemoration of Women's Month. Today's question is a very funny one. The person asks, okay, feminism is so great, why does it have a bad reputation? Fair. Now, I have 3 reasons why feminism has a bad rep. Number 1 is that people don't know about it. They don't know enough about it. You know what you get on social media, you know what you have gotten from hearsay. You haven't read about it yourself. You have not studied it, and what people don't understand, they fear. Secondly, feminism counters what is considered traditional, what has been normalized. We're saying that this inequality is not fair and should be changed. Obviously, people are going to reject that because it steps on their toes. It takes away those that have been privileged all their lives. When you're telling them that we want fairness, it seems as if you're attacking them. So yes, feminism is going to be like a bad thing, have a bad rep when it's taking away power from those that have hoarded it for so long. And finally, I would say perhaps more recently, this is a problem of recent years. There's a lot of, I would say, people presenting themselves as feminist, but not being feminist. They claim a lot of online feminism. A lot. I mean, it's like some people's title is online feminist, and I don't understand. It's your ideology. You can identify as it. It's like you're part of a movement, right? You believe in this, but it's not an occupation. So I don't understand. Like my occupation is I'm a lecturer or I'm an educator that specializes in feminist studies, but my occupation is not feminist. It's one of many different ideologies I hold. So yeah, I feel like a lot of people that are using that title, especially on social media, and not actually practicing the principles, are giving the name and the movement a bad rep. So yeah, those are the 3 reasons. People don't know about it. They don't understand it. They don't understand it, and they're working on hearsay. And 2, people are afraid of it because they're going to lose the privilege that they've enjoyed so long. And 3, some people would
are giving it a bad rep by misrepresenting the movement. So yeah, those are the 3 reasons why feminism has a bad rep.
Hello there, and welcome to day 19 of me, Dr. Monique Ratcher, answering feminism-related questions all through the month of March 2026 in commemoration of Women's Month. Today's question is an interesting one. It's actually a comment, and the commenter says, feminists fight to put women in power, but when women get in power, they are worse than their male counterparts. That's a comment. Personally, I do not see women as worse than their male counterparts. However, I understand where you're coming from, because there is a trend of, and it's actually a studied trend. It's a concept that has been studied. It's not only about women, it's about all minorities. When you put somebody that has been oppressed from an oppressed group, a minority, in a position of power, they tend to conform. So if you study social psychology, you'll see this in terms of the concept of black ops. When you put, there's actually, I think there's a quote that goes around that if you see a white cop and a black cop, go to the white cop. Because the black cop, and this is within a racialized context like America, because the black cop has to prove himself as one of them. So he's going to act harder on you to be able to say, I am not like that black criminal. I don't identify as him. You get the point? And so it's the same thing with women. A lot of women that have been put in power actually tend to overdo because they have to prove themselves. It is assumed that they are there because of DI, because of favoritism, because they don't deserve it. They are the first people to get there. So they feel like they have to do exceedingly abundantly above and beyond. And so they tend up looking harder than their male counterpart. This is a trend. This is not a fact. This does not mean, this is a trend, but it's not a universal fact. It's not everybody, it's not every woman that gets into power and does this. So I cannot say they are harder or they are worse than their male counterparts. That would be untrue. First of all, there are so few women in power as compared to their male counterparts that you will be comparing a minority against a majority, and that's not fair. Next, a lot of the women that are put in power are women that already conform to the system. If you check across the board, who are those that are given position of power? They are those that are already loyal to the system. So obviously, they are going to act in a manner that keeps that system going. Personally, that's why I say I'm not supporting all women. I'm supporting feminists in power. I want more feminists in power, not just women in power. But representation matters. And so the idea of feminists supporting putting more women in power is based on the idea that if we are okay with men starting wars, we are okay with men abusing power and doing all of these things. When a woman does it, treat her the same as you would do a man. Why would you say you will not put women in power because you think that they're going to abuse their power? Men have been abusing it for ages. So treat them fairly. Either you don't put anybody in power because they're going to abuse it, or you put both of them equally in power. And when they abuse the power, you call them both to order. Doesn't mean that you're going to say, oh no, when we put women in power, they do this. But when you put men in power, they've done the same thing. But you're okay with that. So that's not feminist. And yeah, in summary, I would say it's not that a woman misuse power generally. On the contrary, there's a lot of data to show that when they are put in power, they actually care about certain things that men do not. Social welfare of the population more. But it is true that there's a trend there that they feel the need as a minority in power to prove themselves more. And so they end up doing things that people like, wow, that's the fact. And this a good example of this would be Tanzania's president. And everybody share like, oh no, she's a woman in power, look at what she's done. But one of the first things she did was go contrary to, I think, getting girls out of school. Yeah,
because they were pregnant girls not being allowed to continue school. I think that was the first thing she did. And then obviously her reaction to elections, in fact, the whole election debacle showed that she was just as bad as fellow male dictators. But people made it seem like, oh no, she is so horrible because it's expected that a woman should be kind, should be docile, should be this. And that is a gender idea. So you are expecting that she's like this, but she's not like that. And so it gets blown out way more. But men do the same thing. So we're saying that treat them equally, condemn them equally, not because she is a woman. Condemn her because she's a dictator. Call her out on that as you call out her male counterparts. And don't normalize it because, oh, that's a male dictator. She should be different. Why she should be different? They are both operating in patriarchy. So call them out, all of them. Today is day 20, and I've been answering feminism-related questions all through the month of March 2026. Today's question is actually came to me on WhatsApp. And the person asked that as a feminist and a Christian, I identify as both. How do I reconcile my faith with feminist advocacy for abortion? And that's a good question. I think people think there's a moral dilemma here, as in, based on the fact that they think feminists advocate for abortion. That wording is off. Feminists are pro-choice. Pro-choice, that means you should have the choice. And that is very compatible with Christian free will, God giving us the choice. Now you can choose to do something that is against God, or you can choose to do something that is not against God. And actually, it's very contextual. So I don't see these two things as incompatible. Feminists are not saying, oh, all of us should have an abortion. All of us should be given the choice. Because when you remove that choice, you are further subjugating women. Let me explain. A lot anti-abortion policies, such as that which has been taken in many American states recently, put women's lives at danger, even more so than Cameroonian law does. Cameroonian law recognizes that sometimes a pregnancy can be dangerous for the mother. And so under those circumstances, abortion, medical reasons, is correct. Now, abortion when it's a choice, as in, I cannot take care of this child, I do not want this pregnancy, I want to terminate it, up to 3 months, it's also a choice. You are choosing to give up that life, you're choosing to rid yourself of the pregnancy. Up to 3 months, that is what Roe versus Wade abortion policy typically was in the US before recent law happened. Now, if I am saying, give women that choice, I am doing the same thing that God did in saying, give women free will, give men free will. You want to limit their choice, but you don't want to give them comprehensive sex education in such a way that they don't have unwanted pregnancies. You don't want to protect them from inequality in such a way that they are better able to take care of those children. You don't want to create policies that will encourage better family welfare. So these are all of the things that will actually make people not want to give up their children. These are all the structures that feminists are advocating for, that if you do these things, we will not have the unwanted pregnancies in the first place, and therefore abortion would be reduced, But you are saying that we should ban abortion. And what feminists are saying is give people the right to choose, but make sure that this thing is no longer an option that they will go for by creating this other structure. So yeah, it's not really anti-Christian. What is anti-Christian is if I was saying that everybody should go and have an abortion. That's not it. What is anti-Christian is actually limiting people's options or people's free will. Because if I remove your free will, then you're not doing it because you're not obeying God because it's Christian. You're doing it out of fear. That's not Christian. You're not doing it because you don't want to. You're doing it because you have no option but to. And God wants us to do things out of free will. So yeah, I don't see any incompatibility.
The fact that we are saying that something should not be decriminalized, something should not be criminalized does not mean that we are saying that everybody should do it. For example, you have not criminalized adultery, you have not criminalized fornication. Those two are sins. But you have not criminalized taxation. Those two are sins. So the selective criminalization of certain things is actually hypocrisy. That's my stance. Thank you. Hello there, this is Dr. Monique Kwachu, and this is day 21 of me answering feminism-related questions all through March 2026. And I have been asked, what do I wish? What do you wish people knew more about feminism? Very good question. And there are multiple things I wish people knew. But off the top of my head, top three, I would say I wish people knew that it's not that deep. It's not that complicated. Okay? Yes, it is that deep, but it's not that complicated. It's either you think everybody should be treated fairly or you don't. It's either you think we should have equal rights, equal opportunities, we should have justice, or you don't. And if you're somebody that advocates for injustice, ew. It's really like, it's that simple. Do you want to be a just person or not? That is really it. And two, I wish people knew that there were different schools of thought. Now, all feminists agree that there's a problem, patriarchy, and there's a problem of injustice between the genders, and that problem needs to be addressed. And all feminists agree that we should work towards addressing it. But not all feminist schools of thought agree on the real root cause of the inequality, and they don't all agree on how it should be addressed. So there are different schools of thought. So there's liberal feminism, there's Marxist feminism, there's African feminism. So the approaches are different. They're how they go about solving it. They're what the point as the problem and how they conceptualize it, how they fight for against inequality and for equality is different. So these different schools of thought, there's an array of positions you can take. So there's not only one position to take. It's not a binary. So I wish people understood that as well. I also wish people were a lot more honest about the fact that they do not know what African culture is. Because every time they want to fight against feminism, they're always like, oh, it's against our culture. A lot of what you see as your culture is from colonialism. So, like, a lot of these people have not studied pre-colonial culture. They do not know what their culture is. But they are killing us. Oh, it is not our culture. I wish people would be a lot more honest, okay? Because if you hear your culture, you'll be shocked. Dr. Monique Kwachu here, and this is day 22 of me answering feminism-related questions all through the month of March 2026 in commemoration of Women's Month. Today's question is, how do I think we can address gender-based violence? Very good question. Unfortunately, there's not a simple answer. There's no one method. It requires different actors and different arms of the nation, of the society. We need parents to model what they call safety, parents to model equality in their relationships, so children can also model it. Because the first way you learn violence is through socialization. The factors of socialization are family, media, religion, and this thing, how to call it, education. So there are certain ones that can be controlled by the state, but the other ones are controlled by us. It's you who knows the church you're going to. So a lot of the factors for socialization play into what is acceptable. The fact that your husband can beat you for correction, things like that. But then again, the state also has laws that it needs to pass and enforce them. So when it enforces laws, when they make an example of somebody that perpetrates gender-based violence, or when they fail to make an example, they're either okaying gender-based violence or they are saying this is not acceptable and we will not allow this, we will not condone this. I think we also need understanding of what gender-based violence is, because it's not always physical abuse. It can also be emotional, it can be financial. And so there should be a wider understanding of it. Working on customary practices and customary laws and customary norms that make these things okay, that make things like breast ironing okay, or make things like FGM okay, or make things like, how can I put it, basically controlling your wife's bank account okay. So, and also make it impossible for men to speak up when they face violence, because it's also patriarchy that has framed it that men who complain are weak, or men who can be beaten are weak, and therefore they don't speak up when they're abused, even by other men, often by other men. Gender-based violence rates against men are actually often from other men. So I think it's a matter of addressing the culture, ensuring that the laws of the state are applied justly, using our education, using our religious institutions, use all factors of socialization to be able to address it. That there's no one size fits all rule. Start where you are. It's better to start where you are, do the little that you can do, than to do nothing at all. So yeah, we all have a role to play. And at this juncture, I would like to say there's a campaign going on around gender-based violence, which I'll happily share with this post.
Hello there, this is Dr. Monique Quachu, and this is day 23 of me answering feminism-related questions all through the month of March 2026 in commemoration of Women's Month. Today's question is a heavy one and one that's very interesting. The person asked that considering that there has been a lot of focus on women's empowerment in the last decades, there's not as much focus on men, and we're leaving men and boys behind. Are we not further fueling gender wars or a gender gap? That's a good question. However, I think there's a misconception, and I'm going to try and explain it as simply as I can. First of all, yes, you're correct. There has been more focus on women's empowerment, girls' empowerment, and we're leaving boys and men behind, and that is wrong. But the reason why we're leaving boys and men behind is because the kind of women's empowerment, the kind of empowerment that's being done, is very shallow empowerment. So there's a distinction we have in feminist studies, a distinction between practical gender needs and strategic gender needs. Practical gender needs are those gender needs that men or women have that enable them to thrive in their gender roles within the society. So if I, as a woman, if you teach me how to make soap, I teach me how to make cake, and I have this my small petty trade, right? And I'm able to be a better mother, able to be a better wife. You've helped me address a gender need, my practical gender need, because I can operate within patriarchy with that need satisfied. Strategic gender needs are those needs that help me to break down the barriers between the genders. They're more transformative. It helps me to actually supersede my gender role, right? And actually address patriarchy more. So those gender needs, strategic gender needs, are transformative. They're daring. They are rarely addressed. So you see a lot of women's empowerment workshops that pretty much cater to practical gender needs. Women should be more confident. There's a lot of self-help books, how to be a lady, how to be desirable, how to be educated, be a Proverbs 31 woman, learn how to make cake, do all of this, do all of that. And women flock to these things and they benefit from it, yes, because it helps them to become more desirable, more valuable within the patriarchy, but they're still operating within the patriarchy. Strategic gender needs are what they need to be able to defy the patriarchy, and those are rarely ever done. If we're addressing strategic gender needs, we will typically address men, because men's practical gender needs will be things that
let's say, how to earn more. It'll be those crypto bros conferences or finance conferences, because men have been told that all they need to perform in their gender role is to be rich. Whereas a woman needs to be a superhuman, basically. She has to be a good wife, a good mother, a good daughter, a good daughter-in-law. Know how to do your daughter's hair. Know how to take care of yourself. Know how to take care of your home. Know all of these domestic things. And you have these multiple roles. But for a man operating in patriarchy, all you really need to do is have money. All you really need to do is be an alpha bros. Like, if you don't stutter, don't be weak, be loud, if you can do all that, you're fine. You get it? So when we do have men's empowerment workshops, there are events like that. They are seen as for weak men. You rarely see men going for these. They have them in church, they have them, NGOs have them, but they're not seen as things that men need. What men will go for are those trainings that are going to up their income, because they have been raised to believe that all they need is money. So that's why there's that division. That's why you're not seeing more men's empowerment workshops, because it's like there's a common saying in Cameroon, a pidgin idiom. They say, "Na person waiting for mokolo di hozu, man waiting for bastos ne di hozu." And it basically means that the person that is poor in this poorer side of town is hustling, has the drive to get out. The person that's in bastos is laid back. Men who benefit most from patriarchy don't really see the need to be going to learn how to make soap, make cake, be the best father you can possibly be. Imagine having a workshop to say, "Oh, men, come and learn how to be the best father you can possibly be." How many people show up? But women who know that they need to be 10 on 10 to be able to be picked, to be considered a Proverbs 31 woman, to be valued within a patriarchy, they go all out. You see Power of a Praying Wife being sold out. You see all the trainings on how to Pastor Bimbo being sold out. That's right there. It's the person that has low self-esteem, that feels that they need to develop themselves, that goes for development workshops. And that's the problem. This is Dr. Monique Quattro, and today is day 24 of me answering feminism-related questions all through the month of March 2026 in commemoration of Women's Month. So yesterday, I had a very interesting question. Today's day 24. Yesterday, day 23, I answered a very interesting question, and I couldn't complete it because it was a heavy one. So I thought I should make part 2 and answer the second half of that question. But the first half of the question was focusing on the fact that there's a focus on women's empowerment over men and boys. And I agreed, and I explained what that problem is, why that's problematic, and why that happens. Now, the commenter also asks, given the focus on women and girls over men and boys, are we not furthering gender division? Now, as I explained yesterday, a lot of the empowerment that's going on is around practical gender needs, not strategic gender needs. Nonetheless, any form of empowerment, even if it's you learning how to make cake, or you being told you're beautiful, any form of empowerment, self-empowerment, gives you a bit of confidence to question patriarchy. So yes, a lot more women are becoming confident. A lot more women have been raised to invest in themselves. And for this reason, they are questioning traditional gender roles. And because the men have not been invested in themselves, they're not being invested in as much in comparison. Now, here's the issue. It's not so much that these workshops are contributing to furthering the gender divide, the gender gap. No. It's that when you're working on one side, right, this is for this group of people, for this gender that has been behind, when you're working on them to catch up, you have to make sure that the other side that has been far ahead knows how to handle when these other people catch up with them. You also have to prepare them to make sure that they have something else other than the gender role of just have money.
So we have a generation of women here that they were raised in the traditional gender roles. And then they have been empowered so that they can also do more than the limited traditional gender role. Whereas we have a group of men that in their head, they have been raised strictly with that traditional gender role of just have money and you'll be king. But in this economy, with capitalism, they can't just have money. Everybody that actually wants to do what they have to do has a chance of having that money, has a chance, not that they will have equal, has a chance. So now you have this group of men that have nothing to offer aside from that limited traditional gender role, which is part of the toxic masculinity we talked about before. So unless you're raising them to be a lot more holistic and working on the women as well, you are causing another problem. It's not that you're furthering the gender gap, it's that you're causing a different type of problem. So this is where feminist schools of thought differ, because there are different approaches to how we're going to fight patriarchy. Some have theories around, okay, let us how to address both of them. Some say, okay, no, address this group first and then that other group later. So that's where feminist theory and different models of empowerment come up. All the same, that gap, what I'm trying to answer the second question around how we're going to address that gap that is furthering by addressing strategic gender roles with men. Because, for example, if a strategic gender need would be us advocating for men to have paid paternity leave just as much as women. So if men get paid paternity leave just as much as women, and the society expects them to take care of their kids just as much as women, you will be making sure that they are building more holistic skills. They don't think that it's just have money and give the woman and be king. So they get to also be father, just the way the woman gets to be mother. And in that way, you are addressing that inequality between who gets to be domestic, who gets to take care of a child between the ages of 0 and 7. You get who's the primary caregiver. So if we address more strategic gender needs, what I referred to in the last question, you will ultimately close that gap. But if we keep focusing only on practical gender needs, we'll create a different type of problem. That's what I'm trying to say. I hope this answered your question. It was a really heavy question, but it was such an interesting one and actually a useful one. Thank you. Today is day 25 of me answering feminism-related questions all through the month of March 2026. And today's question is kind of like a follow-up of the last question. And this person asked that I said feminism is not a Western output, it's not a Western import, that Africans have always been feminist. But our culture is not feminist, it's very contrary to feminism. And a lot of what we have laws now were given to us because of the white man. Okay, so this is a good comment, but a very good one, thank you. Here's the thing. I explained on day one what feminism is. Feminism is simply the resistance to patriarchy, to sexism. Sexism is inequality between the sexes, simple as that. And feminism is the belief that that inequality is unfair and that inequality needs to be addressed. It's the movement that addresses that inequality. So if you wish to tell me that prior to the white man coming, prior to your colonialism, nobody in your village saw that inequality and said that is unfair and resisted. Really, they didn't call themselves feminist, but they resisted. So anytime someone resisted, that was feminism. So you cannot tell me that the white man brought it, because first and foremost, the white man came and actually added more wahala
they weren't feminists, so they didn't come and give it to us. There's always been resistance to inequalities. It might not have used this terminology, but there have always been resistors. And those resistors are feminist because based on the definition, that's what it is. Now, I also want to address the assumption here that the white man came and gave us good laws. I'm not saying that we were a perfect society before colonialism. We were not. We had just as much sexism, we had just as much problematic behavior as any other continent. As any other continent, we had just as much as any other continent. Not more, not less. Now, just different. Our own sexism was a different brand than their own sexism, but just as much, honestly. Now, the idea that your laws right now are given to you by the white man and the ones that you had before were completely sexist is really contrary, and I would like to say a lot of us should, I wish a lot more of us would study what our cultural norms were and before the corruption of colonialism. It's hard to find that material, unfortunately, but we need to. It requires effort to find it. Let me give an example. People know about widows' rights. When people use these examples of, oh, the white man came and gave us these good laws and our culture was so bad, they use examples of things like widows' rights that are very abusive practices. And I'm always like, but widows in Victorian society, in Bridgerton times, had it just as bad. And although they will not be told to shave their hair or but they were destitute, they were pretty much on the streets. And they could be raped just as much as the women that are widows here in our cultural society, if they're not taken care of, are made vulnerable. But here's the thing. If you go to, for example, I remember doing an assignment once as an undergraduate student at UB, and I did an assignment on widows' rights in Bakwe, the Bakwe culture. And there are widows' rights for the women, and there are widower rights. Now, people don't often hear about the widower rights, probably because the widower rights are softer, and because a lot of the men don't enforce it and nothing happens to them. But there are a lot more people that will make a woman to enforce things within the patriarchy than they will force a man to enforce it. But doesn't mean that these things don't exist. So I would say our society had complementarity. It had, there were those laws as well that existed to keep that equilibrium, to keep some equilibrium between the genders. It doesn't mean that we were just completely destitute and then white man came and gave us human rights, please. No, that's not the case. We had people that resisted, we had people that fought. You do your grandmothers a great disservice to think that they were just laid back and doormats. They were not. Today is day 26 of me, Dr. Monique Kwachu, answering feminism-related questions all through the month of March 2026 in commemoration of Women's Month. Today's question is one I love because the person is basically throwing the ball back in my court. And the person asks me what I think the greatest misconception around feminism is. Now, if you've been following this series from the start, there are many misconceptions, many. But I think the ones we have covered so far, the popular ones, they are the ones that the lay people have without much exposure to feminist thought and feminist practice. Things like, can a feminist be a man? Can feminists be feminine? Those are popular misconceptions, right? That lay people have. So I would say my misconception, which I wish more people pay attention to, is coming from having studied feminist theory. So, and I think it's a dangerous one because it's not one that is popular. It's not one that is overt. There's a misconception around feminism and independence. So a lot of the rallying cry of the earlier feminist movements was, what a man can do, a woman can do too.
and things like, basically let women be independent. These were valid cries because, yes, what one gender can do, another gender can do also. Can, not necessarily should. You get the opportunity to. What we're saying, feminism states, is give us equal rights, equal opportunities, equal responsibilities. So give us the opportunity to do it. And then let me say no. Don't take the opportunity away from me and say, no, she can't. That's what we're fighting for. Now, the fact that I say I can't do it doesn't mean I need to. Doesn't mean I even want to. I shouldn't have to do it. But the fact that I don't want to or I shouldn't have to doesn't mean I shouldn't have the choice. What we are asking for is freedom of choice, because a man chooses, right, to do or not to do. So let the woman also choose to do or not to do. That's what we're asking for. The free will that God gave all humans. Please give us our free will. We'll choose what to do with it. Okay. Now that distinction aside, what happened when this rallying cry of independence is that people started thinking that the end goal of feminism was women's independence. So when women increasingly became independent, they were like, well, yeah, feminism has solved things. And I think your feminist movement is no longer needed because you guys are independent now. But that's not the case. That's very, very wrong, because the goal of feminism was not independence. Independence was the means to an end. The goal should actually be for all of us to be interdependent. I cannot be interdependent if I am not independent, and you are not independent. For us to be able to depend on one another, to be interdependent, I also have to have something to be able to give you, and you also have to have something to be able to give me. We should be able to complement each other. But when you are controlling everything I have, I can't, I'm dependent. That's all I am. So our independence is a pathway to social interdependence. And I want to explain why this misconception is so dangerous. Capitalism is the reason why. One word, capitalism, okay. And it's capitalism that is pushing the nonsense ideology that it's enough to just be independent, because they want you to be isolated, and they want you to be isolated. They want you to be alone. They want you to think you can do it all and solve it, but you can't, and then you'll be frustrated at the end. Because no matter how you empower yourself, no matter how educated you are, no matter how much money you have, you are still a woman. The same thing if you're black, you're still black. Because racism, like sexism, these are structural inequalities. They are systemic inequalities. I cannot empower myself out of the system. Same thing with dealing with systemic bad governance in Cameroon. Even if you're living in Bastos, as rich as you are, as wealthy as you are just as good as the system you live in. Because if you have a medical emergency and you have to be rushed to the emergency room, no matter if you have a Corvette, no matter if you have a Porsche, no matter if you have a Land Rover of any speed, you will not be able to overcome that systemic problem of getting to a good hospital in time before you die. That's what I think people don't understand. So independence is not enough. It's not enough. It's for us to be able to fix the system, we have to be interdependent. So yeah, I think that's the biggest misconception. I really wish people pay attention to the fact that independence is a means to an end. The goal was not for me to be independent. It's not enough.
Hello there. This is Dr. Monique Kwachu, and I have been answering a feminism-related question all through the month of March 2026 in commemoration of Women's Month. And today is day 27, and I am answering a question that was sent in by a friend. And it reads, what, in my opinion, is the most pressing gender issue or pressing issue that's a roadblock to women's empowerment today? Okay. To answer this question, I would say, first of all, gender is a social construct. So what is a pressing issue in this society is not necessarily a pressing issue in another society. For this reason, I don't think I should give a specific answer. I think I'm going to give a general answer that is a general threat in today's day and age, the general threat to the women's movement in general, the women's empowerment movement in general, to gender equality. And that is anti-feminist backlash. That is a pressing issue that affects us all. Because the rollback of rights for one group of people precedes the rollback of rights for the next group of people. When one group of people loses their rights, another person, the next in line is you. So we need to protect the right of one person, whether that's a group you do not like. You need to protect the rights of those people, so you don't lose yours. But in this day and age, we see people saying, "Oh, feminism has gone too far. Women are already equal and free. We should." But that's not the case. I mean, we're in March, and just a few days ago, I was hearing of a rape festival in Nigeria. Literally every day, we are hearing of femicides. Literally every day, we're hearing of male suicide because patriarchy puts so much pressure on them. So, sexism is alive and well. The gender inequalities are alive and well. The movement has not solved the problem. It has not done enough. So to now say it has gone so far and be teaming up with people that want to roll back because you hate a particular group of people, that's dangerous. I think we are all speaking from a place of privilege, especially those that are saying, "Oh no, feminism gone too far," or getting on your phone and saying, "Oh, I'm not a feminist." As a young girl, I'm just laughing like, "Yo, you wouldn't have a phone in the 80s. You wouldn't have a phone if not for a feminist. You're wearing jeans and you're like, yeah, no, I'm not a feminist. Somebody died for you to wear jeans, girl." I think it's coming from a place of privilege and ignorance. When you're fighting the very thing people died so you could have. And it's from ignorance and privilege, honestly, because the right to vote, somebody died so you could have it. The right to go to school, somebody died so you could have the choice to have it. Not that you must go to school, that you must go to work, but that for you to be able to say, "I want to work," or "I don't want to work." Somebody died so you could have that choice. And you're now using that choice, that free will that has been hard won. You're using it to insult the movement that gave you the free will. So I feel like, that anti-feminist backlash, the rhetoric that is being spread and being propagated is the biggest threat to us in general right now. There needs to be more feminist popular education, which is why I'm trying to do this challenge. People need to understand what it is we are advocating for better and what we're advocating against. So before they're fixing their mouth to say anything, they should know what exactly they're saying. I think if we are not careful with the way this movement, this anti-feminist backlash, with the way it's going, we'll lose our rights faster than we even got them. So I think that's the biggest threat we are all facing. All around the world, there's been a crackdown on women's rights advocacy and care. Hello there, today is day 28. And I have been answering feminism-related questions all through the month of March 2026 in commemoration of Women's Month. Today's question is a good one. The person asks, if equality is the goal, then why do we have things like women's only spaces? Why do feminists ask for quotas? And it's like they want to get back at men. Okay. I want to note something, that this thinking sounds like when white people say, "We don't want you to come to our country." And when you ask them, "What do you think I'm going to do when I come to your country?" And they usually sound like the things that they did when they came to Africa. So it's like you're projecting. Like men know what they benefit from patriarchy. And so they're like, "No, we don't want you to be like us." what we're going to do to you. Anyway, jokes aside, to answer your question, I don't know which day it is. I think I'm going to put it in the caption. On an earlier day this month, I gave the distinction between gender equality and gender equity. Our goal is equality, but you cannot arrive at equality without first taking equitable actions to balance the scale. And it's those equitable actions to balance the scale that people don't like. Because people don't like the notion of affirmative action, the notion of acknowledging that this group of people have been advantaged for so long, so we're going to pause their advantages so this other group of people can catch up. That's the one that they're like, yeah, no, give us both. Yes, we were benefiting before, but now they can also benefit. Give them 50, give me 52. But that's not fair. That means one group is still going to be ahead. So equitable action is actually balancing the scales, making sure that for a while, one person is going to get 100 and you're going to be getting 50. We're not taking from you. You'll still be getting the same amount. But this other person is going to be getting 100 because they have gotten nothing for so long. That is not trying to be like men. Because if we're trying to be like men, we're trying to do bad for bad. We'll say you should not even get 50. But we're not. We're saying that give this group of people help that they need to be able to meet up with the people that have had it historically, been advantaged. And this is not only a matter of women. It's not even, affirmative action is not limited to feminism. It's the same thing as regional balance in Cameroon. I say it in quote because we're not really practicing it the way it should be practiced. So a minority that has been disadvantaged should be prioritized for a while so they catch up with the majority that has been historically advantaged. All of these are efforts to be able to undo the inequality that has been there, to be able to enable a catch up, right? Equity. These are equitable actions. Eventually, if you do these equitable actions enough, if you do them well enough, you will arrive at equality. So things like safe spaces for women, to be able to protect them, to make sure that they are safe enough to compete or safe enough to express themselves. Things like quotas are actually equitable actions. It's not favoritism. It's not a favor. It's you undoing what the system has done for ages. It's not a gift. Okay? So, yeah. This is not us doing to you what has been done to us. It's us correcting problems that we have to correct to be able to get to 50-50 eventually. A good day again. This is Dr. Monique Quachu, and today is day 29 of me responding to feminism-related questions all through the month of March 2026 in commemoration of Women's Month. Today's question feels somewhat like a personal attack, so I won't actually tag the person, name the person, but I was asked that if feminism is really about equal rights and addressing the issues of both men and women, what kind of work do I do personally to further men's rights just as much as women's rights? All right, let me say that personally, I work at the intersection of gender and education. So the work I do is the work I'm doing right now. I teach. If you're registered in my class, I teach you, whether you're a man or woman. I believe in the power of education as an agent of socialization to effect social behavioral change. What that means is, I believe we can use education, teaching people to change their mindsets, to change social norms, to influence people to act in a more gender-just fashion. Now, I personally typically avoid work that works directly with gender-based violence. I typically avoid it. I sometimes work in it, but I tend to avoid it because the way I'm set up physically, psychologically, I will take that work home and I'll go and hurt somebody because I will take it very personal. I will imbibe the violence. So I tend to avoid gender-based violence work. That doesn't mean I ignore it. And I think the person is asking this question because they feel like men's issues are not being addressed at all. And I would like to say, in my experience, I tend to see people bringing up men's issues only when feminists have spoken up on women's issues. It's more of a reactive thing than a proactive thing. I think we would believe your concern for men's issues if you brought it up before we brought up women's issues, not as a aha moment, but the men. Think of the men first. Not only when we have brought up women's issues that you think, okay, but you haven't spoken about men. That's dishonest of you. And intellectually dishonest, because you're acting as though you're offended. That no, you're offended about the exclusion of men. No, you're offended about the focus on women. That right there is intellectual dishonesty. Furthermore, I would like to add this. I think we need to appreciate that the person that is more vulnerable gets more attention. If I am boarding a flight and I hear that the elderly and parents with young children should board first, I don't feel offended. I understand that is a vulnerable group. They're dealing with people that they cannot stand for long. You get the point? So they are given priority. I don't feel offended. I don't feel marginalized. So too, men shouldn't feel marginalized that women are being given more attention by a movement for equality, considering the fact that they are facing more inequality and more violence. Yes, men face gender-based violence, patriarchal, and inequality from patriarchy. For example, more men have been unlawfully detained as a result of the Anglophone crisis, and Boko Haram, they're targeted because they are believed to be oppressors based on patriarchy. So they're the ones that get targeted first. More men face psychological and emotional harm in domestic violence, but they cannot report it, which they cannot report. I'm not saying that they face it more than women. I'm saying that they face that which they cannot report because of patriarchy. And this is also one of the things that needs to be worked on. But as compared to women, we are in March, the month of March alone, and we have heard of a rape festival in Nigeria, of an 11-year-old being raped by her father, of a woman being killed by her husband because in the course of sexual intercourse because she was just from childbirth and he could not wait, and of another woman being disciplined by her husband with a cutlass and killed. Now, here's the thing. I'm not saying that men don't face domestic violence, but as compared to women who get killed, the violence that men report is usually psychological and emotional abuse that they feel reluctant to report because patriarchy is the way patriarchy is set up. They will be looked down upon if they do. So I feel like the enemy is patriarchy, but you people want to promote a gender war. There is no gender war. I keep saying this. There is no gender war at all. So yeah, the work that I do is teaching to unlearn these stereotypes so that we can actually work on fixing patriarchy. I hope that helps.
This is day 30, finally. This is Dr. Monique Kwachi once again. I have been answering feminism-related questions all through the month of March 2026 in commemoration of Women's Month as part of a challenge by Lorraine Shoe Media. Now, my question for today is one I should have expected, but unfortunately I didn't. So I really didn't prepare ahead. And this person, a friend and a fellow reader, asked me what she could read, something that's accessible, that she could read to understand feminism better, to increase her knowledge of this belief and this movement, so that she doesn't fall victim to what is being brandished online and it's not quite feminist thought. Unfortunately, if a lot of what I have read as a scholar of feminist studies is academic and it's not really public facing. So finding what is accessible to the public is pretty tricky. That does not mean, and I know somebody will be like, okay, so that means that it's for scholars only. No, it's not. We've explained that the movement is far-ranging and there are different types of feminist and feminist thought. The problem is, how has it been articulated? How is it being presented? The easiest one that everybody always goes to, I think for undergrads, every university I've worked at, use Chimamanda's "We Should All Be Feminists," which is a good entry point. It's a speech, it's a TED talk, it's a good entry point, but it's not going to give you like a history of feminist thought or any of those details. I would say though that the book by Chimamanda, if that's what you're looking for, something very, very light, that does cover feminist thought very well, is this one, Dear Joanna. And this manifesto does very well and is very light, as you can see. So if you're interested in this, if you're interested in knowing more, I would definitely recommend this. There is also, for Christians who want to reconcile Christianity and feminism, I recommend Jesus Feminist. For those that want to read about feminism as pertains to the African continent, and I'm going to share this link. This is my recommendation. It's on my curriculum anywhere I teach. Please find the African Charter, the African Feminist Charter that was produced by African Women's Development Fund, or a subsidiary of African Women's Development Fund, which is the African Feminist Forum. That is for us, by us, okay? And that should cover everything that you need to know. So what other, I would definitely recommend in terms of a feminist example, this one, Mighty Be Our Powers. And this is by Nobel laureate Lema. So I think this book really drove me into activism. This is a staple I have to recommend. More recent, a fiction book that will get you thinking about feminism is one of my favorites. This is Lola Shoyin, The Secret Lives of Babasegi's Wives. There's also, if you're not into African feminism but you just want to read widely, I recommend reading Bad Feminist, this collection of essays by Roxane Gay. There's also Hood Feminism. You might like this. This is really a Black feminist staple for African Americans, but it does apply widely. So I'll recommend this as well. Now, most recently, we've had two editions that are definitely going to become books that should be on everybody's reading list if they're teaching feminism on the African continent. And this is African Feminist Praxis by Jessica Horn, and Can Feminism Be African by Mina Salami. And Mina is one of the first, had a blog called Afropolitan, one of the real strong blogs of the millennial years. And she really dealt with the topic of feminism on the African continent on media before it became a thing. So definitely recommend these last two editions. I hope this helps. I'm going to share the link for the African Feminist Forum publication, the African Feminist Charter, and it's in English and in French, so I recommend that everybody reads that. Thanks again.
Hello everyone, this is day 31 of me, Dr. Monique Quattru, responding to feminism-related questions all through the month of March 2026 as part of a challenge given to me by Lauren Shu Media in commemoration of Women's Month. Today marks the end of this challenge. Over the last 30 days, I have been answering all your questions around stereotypes and doubts that you have about feminism. We received questions such as, can men be feminist? What is feminism exactly? What is patriarchy? What is toxic masculinity? And I hope you could go back and find out what those answers were. I have thoroughly enjoyed this challenge because it helped me partake in what is called feminist popular education. That means we are ensuring that the average person understands what concepts that we typically discuss in academia means, especially because these concepts matter to their real everyday lives. As I said countless times over the course of this challenge, feminism affects both men and women. And it is imperative that we do not allow anti-rights rhetoric to cause a rollback
in women's rights and in what feminism has already gained over the last few decades. Right now, we have a problem because people have not understood the concept, because people have misused the concept, because people have misrepresented the movement, and because people are unappreciative of what the women movement has already won for them. They don't realize that a lot of the rights we enjoy right now is because the feminist movement has won those rights. We have people who are saying feminism has gone too far and calling for a rollback. The danger of that is that every win we have right now, the fact that women can vote, the fact that women can work, the fact that men are considered in terms of fatherhood, men's emotions are considered, the fact that we now have phones, your own bank account, your partner can equally contribute in the household. All of these are wins from the feminist movement. And we are in danger of losing them if we do not pay attention. So I hope that it doesn't end here. I hope that this challenge doesn't end with Women's Month. Beyond this month, find out for yourself what feminism means. Don't buy into the rhetoric of a gender war that is being passed online. Query the people that you think are misrepresenting the movement. Ask questions, as you have asked me through the last month. And even now, if you have questions for me, I'm willing to take them. Again, I would like to introduce myself. I am Dr. Monique Kwachu. I am a Cameroonian writer and researcher and practitioner of gender and education for development. If you like this challenge and you want to know more in future, let me know. I'm always open to having another Dr. Mo series. I welcome your questions. Thank you.